It was nearly 2 years ago that we first heard about a new Rose of Versailles movie coming out, and we didn't learn that much about it in that initial announcement. We had a visual, we knew it was a movie, and that was about it. Which led to some speculation, was this the return of the originally announced Toei movie adaptation that they were trying to do in 2007 and there was a trailer for, and then nothing ever came of it? Or was this something completely new? Was this going to be a remake? Was it going to be like a side story? What was this going to be? Well, now, finally, we have some new information. First of all, we know the studio behind it, and it is not Toei, it is Mappa, which is interesting, I guess. Just Mappa doing more stuff. Definitely a bit different from what Mappa has been doing lately with just the non-stop shonen. So interesting that they're taking on a classic shoujo like this. But also we know the release date, which will be sometime in spring of next year. So shouldn't be that long before it's out in Japan at the very least. A little under a year from right now. Most importantly though, we got a trailer. And the trailer is notable for a couple of reasons. There is some dislike of the soundtrack because it is Hiroyuki Sawano, and normally people really like Hiroyuki Sawano, but there are some people who feel like it doesn't fit for this type of show, and maybe not. That's going to be up to personal preference, and we'll have to see how that soundtrack is used in the actual movie. So I think it's a little too early to tell how that is going to fit. But most importantly, this trailer has effectively confirmed that we are getting a remake rather than some sort of side story or sequel, which granted it would never have made sense for there to be a sequel if you have watched the original Rose of Versailles. But a remake does, of course, spark another conversation to be had, which is how are you going to remake a 40-episode story into just one movie? Now, potentially it could be more. Just because we only have one announced currently doesn't mean there couldn't be multiple movies somewhere down the road. And if that's the case, then this really isn't that much of a concern because they can do however many movies they feel like they need to cover however much of the story they feel like they need to. But this idea of taking Rose of Versailles and turning it into a movie is not a new idea. I mean, there is that live action version that was made a long time ago. And of course, even just in anime form, the idea of turning it into a movie has been around since 2007, ever since the idea of Toei doing it was thrown out there. So now that conversation is coming back into the forefront. Can you take this story and theoretically turn it into just one movie? And I'm not sure. It is definitely true, and I do believe the original Rose of Versailles can stand to benefit from a remake of some sort, because a decent chunk of its episodes, especially in the middle, are kind of slow. At the end, the show really gets its stride going, and those last 12 or 13 episodes are stunning. But there is a chunk in the 20s or so where you do kind of feel it dragging. And a lot of that does revolve around a particular character who I will try to be vague about. And I could see a situation where that character is maybe removed from the story entirely, which could stand to benefit things quite a bit and really allow them to shave a lot off. Because that particular character, while they do have a historical place, that historical role is relatively minor and only comes up at the end of the story. For whatever reason, that character was given a much larger role in the story and was even intended to have a bigger role than what they actually have. When the manga was coming out, the creator actually ended up basically writing that character out of the story and only brought them back when they were needed for their actual historical role. And you can see if you're watching the anime that this character is introduced, is built up, basically becomes a main character, and then kind of abruptly is taken out of the story. So I could see a situation where they just take the character out entirely and only have them show up for their historical role. And it is just kind of interesting with this character that they have such a presence in the story and actually are given connections to other historical characters that they do not have in real life. This figure and other figures have no connection whatsoever, but the story makes those connections and focuses on those connections. And it's kind of weird. It'd be one thing if it was let's take this historical character and give them a bunch of fictional stuff to do and connect them with fictional characters, and of course that happens as well. But to give connections between them and other historical figures that do not exist is very strange. It would be if, I don't know, you had a story about Thomas Edison, and for whatever reason the story said his best friend growing up was Harry Houdini or something. It's yeah, they're from the same general time period, but should they really have a connection here? It's just kind of weird when you think about it. But of course, that's the sort of thing that may not bother a lot of people because not everybody really cares about that historical accuracy. But I could see that being a route they go where they cut that character out, technically make the story more historically accurate as a result, and that could really allow them to slim things down. And I would argue take out probably the weakest part of the story. Another option alongside that could be to take some of the characters that are based on historical figures and do historical things and just kind of not focus on them that much, only bring them in when it's really necessary instead of going through through like their backstory, whether it's historical or embellished or whatever, and mainly just focus on the primary characters of the story being Oscar, Andre, Marie Antoinette, to a lesser extent King Louis, and Hans, and just make them the main focus and don't worry too much about the other characters. That's another way you could streamline the story and just kind of cut out a lot of stuff that, yes, will take some stuff away from it, but also will allow you to keep the movie a lot more focused. That is another option. Now, will all that be enough to turn this into like an hour and a half, 2-hour movie? I don't know. Maybe one option is to make this a long movie. Maybe this is going to be like Disappearance of Haruhi levels of length. Like this could be close to a 3-hour movie. Who knows? When you start to think about it and think, well, like a 2.5 hour, 2-hour, 40-minute movie, even a 3-hour movie, we're really only talking like 8 to 9 episodes there. Is that enough? Can we really take 40 episodes and cut it down to 9 and be okay with that? I don't know. I really don't know. But I think you will most likely see some combination of those ideas, streamlining the story to focus primarily on the main characters, probably cutting out certain characters or reducing their role, and ultimately just trying to trim out anything that feels unnecessary. How well it's going to be able to do that will really depend on, as I said, how long the movie is, and if this is just part 1 in a movie trilogy potentially, or if there's 2 movies, whatever. That's probably going to determine how this feels. Regardless, I do like the idea of this. I am supportive of taking the story of Rose of Versailles and trimming out some of the fat, because there is some. As much as I did really enjoy that show, and I do think people should watch it regardless of what happens with this movie, even though it is, yes, a 45-year-old show, I get it, you should still watch it. It is really, really good, especially that last like 12, 13 episodes. I think there is room to make a remake feel justified. Unlike other things that have gotten remakes recently, I think this is a place where it makes sense. So I am hopeful that this will work out, and I am looking forward to getting more news about this as spring 2025 gets closer. But let me know what you think about this information we've gotten regarding this project. Are you happy about Mappa being the studio? Are you worried about the soundtrack? Are you concerned about being able to tell the story in 1 or maybe more movies? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, take care everyone. Look forward to the next video.